She holds the key to the future of every able-bodied American. Her words are rare gems in the financial world where those who worship at the altar of fiduciary responsibility stop in their tracks every time she utters a single syllable. And once again, Janet Yellen appears before Congress, and the earth trembles. Another edition then of Bulls, Bears, and Bucks. Welcome back from the Society to Advance Financial Education. Steve Beaman will join me now in this little discourse that we have. How do you like that, Steve? I think that worked pretty well for the whole Janet Yellen introduction. We should do that in Congress.
Well, there you go. I think you hit it nail on the head. People, and especially she comes out twice a year for these Humphrey Hawkins hearings, and boy, do people watch every single syllable she says.
Well, here's a couple things. First of all, she says no hike soon and don't audit the Fed. Let's deal with the first one first. No hike soon. I mean, that basically is good news for the overall economy, is it not?
Yeah, as you and I have talked, we're getting mixed signals on this economy constantly. They just announced today consumer confidence dropped again in January. So there's real no assurance that this growth the Fed wants to see before they raise rates is going to be there. So they're backing off a little bit on their near-term rates. The bet's now September-ish, but we'll have to see if the economy continues to sputter or actually kicks into growth.
Now, Rand Paul last month reintroduced his Audit the Fed bill, which would basically expose the bank's monetary policy discussions to the public at this point. Now, local banks are against it. Is this a good idea?
Well, I think it's a populist idea. The problem is the Fed walks a fine balance between being politicized and not being politicized. The danger of Congress getting its hands into the Fed is that decisions will be made purely on a political basis, not on a financial basis. And for the most part, the Fed makes decisions independent of the political winds. So I think it's a little bit dangerous. I think most of us would like to see where the Fed's money goes. By the same token, we don't want to see congressional involvement in those policies.
Does the Fed, for the most part, Steve, work?
Wow, is that a question? You know, generally speaking, in normal times it does. I think if we go to 2008 and 2009, you could argue the Fed created that problem. By the same token, it was clearly the work of Ben Bernanke flooding liquidity into the global markets that prevented a real global meltdown. So in that sense, I guess it did work.
Let me see if I can get your opinion on something else that happened today. And the news broke that J.P. Morgan is going to start charging big clients fees on some of their deposits. Now, we're talking about the bigger clients. Basically, according to J.P. Morgan, they said that it's holding the money for the clients is just too costly. Granted, these are the big guys. But for the consumer and the little guy and gal down at the end, is there a possibility that this will one day trickle down to them?
Oh, I think absolutely. What you have are the big banks and financial institutions. They're really getting hurt by new regulatory costs, and they're trying to squeeze every dollar out they can. They're going to the high net worth people because they'll complain the least, and there's really nowhere else for them to go. If you want to hold cash, you hold it in one of the major banks. Money markets aren't doing all so great, and there's some risk in those as people experienced in 2008. So I think people are going to be stuck with a little bit of a fee on those, and they've got you there.
There's that trickle down again. All right. The President's administration, new rules that would require a higher standard for those who offer advice on retirement accounts. This, again, sounds basically at its core like a pretty good idea.
You know, Ed, I'm glad you bring this one up. Anybody listening today who has a 401k or an investment account that has a broker giving them advice needs to take heed of this. What they're doing is raising the standard of behavior on the part of the brokers from that of selling what are called, acceptable products under a prudent man rule into an investor to a fiduciary standard. And what that means is a broker for, say, Merrill Lynch will have to look out for the interest of the client irrespective of his employment by Merrill Lynch. So they'll have to sell product from every firm based on cost and performance, not just Merrill Lynch. And that is going to wreak havoc in the big wirehouses, the big brokerage firms.
All right, final shot with about 40 seconds to go here. Drone makers expecting a big surge in sales, military and civilian drones to the Gulf states. So is it maybe a good idea to start investing in those companies that create drones?
It's about the only good news from it. We let that cat out of the bag and opened up Pandora's box of these things. We're going to see drones watching everything we do here and abroad. There's concern globally about the use of these in the military sense because we've obviously had drone-based killings from the United States. And now if you give these out to Saudi Arabia and everybody else, you'll see an increase in that. But yeah, this technology is clearly a good place to put some investment capital in the entire defense industry.
Oh, my goodness. I can all of a sudden see the scenes from the trailer for Terminator somewhere in here. I don't know why, but that's all I can think about. Drones everywhere.
Well, go look at robotics, and you'll get really scared about that.
Thank you so much. We're already frightened. Please, as long as the anchors still remain human, we're okay. Steve Beaman, the Society to Advance Financial Education. Thanks, Steve. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Ed.
All right. It's the social comment from the Academy Awards that is still bouncing around not only Hollywood, but every American workplace. And how it has oddly split even liberals into taking sides is more than a little bit interesting. We'll focus on that when we come back right here on MidPoint.